All right, so in our last lesson, we set up comments on items, which is a one-to-many data relationship. In this lesson, we're going to walk through creating what's called a many-to-many data relationship. So we're going to use tags to do that. We'll create a set of standard tag records in a data collection, and then we'll add the ability to add multiple tags to each item. Let's get started. Okay, so let's start off in data collections. Let's go ahead and add a new collection. We'll call it tags. And we'll add a new field. And we're going to have a field called tag name. Move that over to the left. And then we're just going to go ahead and create some tag records. So this is going to be a static list. I'm not actually going to build a UI around it. We're just going to create some here. We'll have dog food. Let's have cat food. Have llama food. And we'll have penguin food. And that's good for now. We can come here and add more tags anytime we'd like to. Okay, so now we're going to make another new data collection. It's going to be a relationship collection between items and tags. I usually call these something like relationship dash items, and then I'll normally do something like this to note that it's connecting those two. Then what we're going to need is two fields, one for item ID. Again, I like to just drag these over, and another for tag ID. And I'll drag that over. So this collection is literally only to relate an item to a tag. So we'll need to make a UI where on an item, you can select from a list of tags. And when you select a tag, it adds that tag to the item, which basically means it creates one of these relationships. What we're going to need is a tag row. That is going to be a new page. Call this a tag. And I'm not going to try to make this super fancy, but we'll add a few things here. So let's make a div, and we're going to style this div, make a primary class here, call it tag outer. And then let's go with padding of, say, just 1 EM all the way around. And then we'll do a border radius. And let's go with 0.25 EMs. So a little bit of border radius. We'll go background dash color, and we're going to do some, let's go with like a blue, go something a little bright, like up here. All right. And then now let's drop a text paragraph into that. A couple things I want to do in here. I'm going to set the color to white there. And then let's do a margin of 0 pixels so that it just uses that outer thing. So we're going to go tag. That's it. Okay. So now on the tag outer, let's also add a hover color. So I'll start from this one. Let's go with background color. And let's just make it a little bit darker, maybe like that. And we can just kind of see what it looks like here. It might be a little too dark. Let's go just a little bit lighter. Like here, let's try that. Let's see what that looks like. That's fine. We'll go with that. Might play with those colors quite a bit. If I was sitting here with my design hat on, I don't think I'd leave it like that, but it's okay. So let's also change the cursor to a pointer so we can see it. All right, so now we're going to add another new div just like we did before. And you know what I'm going to do actually? I'm just going to duplicate this one. Just go duplicate. So now I have two of those sections. You can see it push that down. So now this other page is getting overlapped underneath it. You see underneath there? All right, so let's kind of move those around a little bit. And just move that comment row page over here, maybe make it a little bit smaller. That, because it doesn't need to be so wide really. Okay, and then I'm going to delete this, and we won't need an add comment button, but we'll use the grid. So the grid, we're going to change that from comment row to tag. So if we look, that is really not what we want tags to look like. So let's put some styling on this. I'm going to change the primary class to say grid tags. We'll call it that. And then first thing I'm going to do on a grid, because it is a UL element, HTML element, which means it's an unordered list. It has some default padding. And also there's some default margin settings that are sometimes on it depending on the browser. So first thing to do is go ahead and knock it out like that. Now I'm going to do a display flex, and then we're going to set some flex settings here. So let's go with justify content, and I'm going to start at top left and do align items, and I'll do that top left. I could do this like centered and it'll center them, but we'll just leave it like that. Next, let's do a gap, and gap, we can put say 1 EM. And then over here, let's go back to our tag because those aren't very wide. I think we should probably have a min width on them. So let's do a min width here of say 75 pixels. Let's go with 100. All right, so there's our minimum width there. I think this is a little bit too big, so maybe let's go 0.75 and 0.75. That looks a little better. All right, we can just leave it just like that. All right, so this is going to be our tag display. So that means that we need to change this data. This isn't going to come from comments because remember we duplicated this. So it came from this one that was comments. So it's still got that data set up in there. So let's go change that. This is actually going to be the relationships. So this is going to get a list of all the relationships, but we need to filter it. So this is the relationships where the item ID is from the current record field value, the current item ID, right? So the item ID of the tag relationship record matches the current item that I'm in. So that setup is the same as what we see on here. We're just filtering it by the item ID of that tag relationship. So here's one thing to note. Recall that because I'm setting the comment in here, it's really easy on each row then to go set the data to come from the comment field directly. But on here, I'm a step away from it, right? I'm setting the relationship records into this grid, which means that each of these rows here, this tag row or tag grid card doesn't actually have the direct information. What it has is this information, which is just the item ID and the tag ID. It doesn't have the tag name. And that's intentional. We don't want to put the tag name into here because if we do, then what will happen is that if you have to update a tag name, it would be out of date, or you'd have to go update every relationship record or something along those lines. So what we do instead is we set the tag name with an action. So instead of using the data tab and going through this, we're actually going to use an action. So I'm going to go into the page binding flow, and I'm going to do a set value action. And the element we're going to set into is the tag element. And the value we're going to set is from a data collection, from the tags. And the field we want to set is the tag name. And the tag ID we're trying to find is in the current record field value. I'm in the relationship record, remember here. Each one of these tags is the relationship record. So I want to pull the tag ID of the relationship record, use it to find the ID of the tag, and then bring back the tag name of that tag. There's one more thing we have to do down here. This JSON array here, this data format, this is going to return an array of records. So what would happen is this would find one record, the specific tag, but it's going to return it as an array of information. What we really want is a comma separated value. Now in this case, it's going to find one record and one field. So it's going to only come with that one value. So this is perfect. So this is going to set the value of the tag name into the tag element from the tag record that matches the relationship tag ID. Now we need to build a small UI on this side that allows us to select a tag to add. Okay, so now we're going to create a small UI to add tags, and we're going to do this in the simplest way. There are much different ways to do this if you want a whole different user experience. But what we're going to do is a simple select menu. So I'm going to drop this select menu on here. And we're going to tell this to get its data from a collection list of tags. And we're going to return, we can just get all fields. And we don't need any filtering here, but we do want to sort by the tag name. So now that's going to pull in all of the tags and sort them by tag name and set that as the menu list. We need to map two other properties on the properties panel. The first one is the display name. So we're going to, again, from tags, this needs to match up to your data. And the display name will be tag name. And the value will be the ID. So when the user clicks in here, they'll get a list of the tags and with the tag name being displayed. But when they select a tag, it'll actually store the ID of the tag as the selected value. I'm going to add a little bit of styling here because I want to put some margin below it. So let's do 1 EM. So that way there's some space between them. Okay, so let's just take a look at what this looks like in the preview now. So I have this drop down menu and it has our 4 options in it. So now what I want to do is when the user clicks on cat food, we're just going to make it automatically add that tag here. So just create the tag. Okay, so let's go back over here and go to the events of the select menu. And on change, we'll make a new flow. We'll call it add tag. Adding a tag is creating one of these relationship records, right? So we're going to select relationship item tags in our create record action. We're going to select the item ID. The item ID is going to come from the current record field value item ID. Remember, because we're inside of an item right now. So we're going to get the item ID from the current record's item ID. And then we'll map another new field. And this one is the tag ID. And this one is going to come from the element, which is that select menu. So when they select it, we'll run this and it will create the record. And then just like on the other setups, we do need to run the page binding after the record is created so that it will refresh that list and show us the new tag that got created. Okay, so we'll go back over here, go dog food, and it created dog food. Go cat food, and it created cat food. Perfect. Now, because I'm rerunning the entire binding, it's actually resetting this value, which was empty by default. So that's why it's clearing itself out. Right? We aren't going to do any restrictions here, but you could technically like add cat food again, right? So let's go ahead and now make it to where I click on one of these to delete it. So let's go back over here. We'll go to the tag, go to the events, and on click of that outer div, we're going to do a new flow called delete relationship. So we're going to add a new action, and there's actually an action here called permanently delete record. And we're going to permanently delete a relationship item tag. This action automatically knows the record context. So all we have to do is run this action with the correct collection context, and it will automatically update the data. So it's going to go delete that. Now we do need to tell it to refresh this again. So we're going to add another action, a run flow action like we've used before. We're going to tell it to wait. And then on the item edit page, we'll select page binding again. Okay, so now if we go back over, select cat food, it will remove cat food. We can go check out the relationships and see the different relationships between them. We can also go and add tags. And so if I want to add a new tag, we can say hamster food. And now if we go back here and reopen this, we'll have a new option called hamster food. And now let's go change hamster food. Say I misdid that, right? So let's go back over to the data collections, go back over to the tags. Didn't mean to say hamster. I meant to say gerbil. Okay. If I go back in it now it's gerbil food. So this is what I was referring to before. By using the relationship records with only the IDs, we can update the data and it's going to automatically update back in here. We could also do some really smart filtering here. So like filter out, don't include the ones that are already there, but we'll maybe save that for another lesson. Now on this project, we have started with a basic list of items. We then were able to add comments to those items. So we can type our comments in, comment one, and I can hit enter and it'll add it in there. I can also select a tag and select another tag. So comments are a one to many, one item, many comments. Those comments are not shared across items. Whereas the tags are many to many, meaning that the same tags get shared across multiple items. And that's it. So that's how you create the different types in Builder.